All right, so we are said to have this opportunity gap or this education gap, and I want to take some time and explore some of those concepts with you. First of all, this is Andre Koen. You can find us at on Patreon. You can find us at amhorizons.com, andrecohen.com, Armchair Activist podcast.com. Yeah, we look forward to seeing you in those spaces. So I want to talk a little bit about this. I teach a class at a private university, and the name of the class is Educational Equity. And so part of how we address education in schools depends on kind of the paradigm that we're operating with, right? So what is equity? Now, people get equity and equality confused oftentimes, and people often also say that equity is just a nuanced way or a fancy way of saying something that everybody knows what it is. And so I'd like to just paint you this picture, that equality is making sure that everyone has shoes, and equity is making sure that people have the shoes that fit. And so they are certainly related to one another, and I would say that they actually fuel and support one another, those two concepts of equality and equity. So when we talk about schools and education, one of the things that keeps coming up is this 1955 Brown versus the Board of Education, which I was just speaking with some friends, and we're talking about, civil rights and movements and how things should be handled and who should handle what. And one of the things that I was sharing with the group was we can have as many people as we want marching in the streets. We can have as many people as we want protesting, sitting down, taking knees, putting fists up, however they want to protest. But until we actually get things in legislation, until things become set in law, we actually won't get any significant change. I was speaking also with another group, and we were talking about these executive orders. And I would suggest that executive orders are a necessary evil, if you will, or necessary tool, but they're a short-term fix for long-term problems, right? So executive orders can be executed by a president, but can also be undone by another president. Whereas if we look at our laws and statutes, because it takes such a cumbersome process for those to work through, we can say that there is some permanence. There's a lot of effort to develop them, and so there also takes a lot of effort to undo them, right? So I want to just kind of say that. So back to the Brown versus the Board of Education and the reversal of Plessy versus Ferguson, which adopted the doctrine that separate is equal, and Brown versus the Board of Education said that separate is not equal, and so it is unconstitutional to try to run separate and equal systems. And what we know, just by human nature, that separate is never necessarily equal, right? So separate is just separate. Different is different. We can't necessarily have systems that are different and the same in terms of how, particularly when resources aren't the same, right? So all those things said. So we have this educational gap or this opportunity gap. And one of the ways that pre-service teachers are encouraged to think about that is that this is oftentimes based on their participation as a professional in the classroom. And so how they as individuals create atmospheres and engage with their students or disengage in this with the students, or don't create atmospheres, has a direct impact on students' learning. What we know is that the Pygmalion effect or the Rosenthal effect is a pretty profound concept, particularly when it comes to teaching and education and the motivation of human beings, right? Because people rise and fall to the level of expectation that they're presented with. And so pre-service teachers need to recognize that whether they have high expectations or low expectations is important, as well as looking at their own, racial implicit and explicit bias. And those are things that are always oftentimes attributed to this achievement gap. But one thing I'd like to talk about a little that I believe is more important, or just as important, is the culture of schools, right? The nature of schools. And so when we talk about the nature of schools, that then becomes important for us to recognize how schools get formed, how they get funded, what happens in schools, what doesn't happen in schools, how we separate schools into different levels, and what those actually look like when they get played out. And so, so what is the culture of school? What are schools like? Well, let's talk a little bit about this idea. What is school for? And I want you to think about your own education. Why did you go to school? Or why is it important that people have that opportunity to go to school? We know that there are educational institutions that are tiered. We're not supposed to be, but we know that they're tiered, right? So there are private schools, there are public schools, there are urban public schools, there are suburban public schools, there are rural public schools, there are private schools, there are religiously affiliated schools. And in all of those schools, there are charter schools, right? Magnet schools. And in all of those, we recognize that resources and allocation of resources and the skill level and the commitment of the teachers really plays a significant role in the advancement of their students in those classrooms. And so in this next segment, we're really going to start peeling back how schools function, how they should function best to serve all of the community, but specifically the parents and the children who are in their charge. So we'll stop right there. This is Andre Koen. You can catch us on Patreon. You can catch us on YouTube, surf the web, andrecohen.com. amhorizons.com, armchairactivistpodcast.com. We look forward to interacting with you and engaging with you as we talk about these ideas around how we can close the so-called achievement or the opportunity gap. This is Andre Kohen, and we look forward to seeing who you become.